In this lesson, I will be showing you how to install Apache and PHP as a testing web server your environment on a Windows 8.1 or 8 workstation. This is the site we want, so I'm going to open it. At the time of this video, version 2.4.16 is the latest stable version, and you can download it from here. But we won't click here. Rather, for Windows, you can't find it on this site. There are a couple of external sites where you can pick it up from, a pre-compiled version. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to pick it up from Apache House, which is a very famous and popular location to pick your Windows Apache download. Now you can see there are a bunch of download options. So which one should I pick? So at the very beginning in this lesson, there is a very important thing that you will have to pay attention to. You should make the very correct choice in which download you want to take. And if you select correctly, this will save you hours together of frustration. What are the parameters that you have to consider? The first parameter is whether your Windows is a 32-bit or a 64-bit. Like me, if you are running on a 64-bit version of Windows, then you can actually run both Apache 32-bit and 64-bit, but it will not work vice versa. That is, if your operating system is 32-bit, you cannot run a 64-bit Apache or PHP. You can see here, this is 64-bit, this is 32-bit. This is 32-bit, this is 64-bit, and so on. Same for Apache and for PHP both. So the first choice is whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit that you are picking up. The second very important choice that you have to make is the open source is compiled by which version of Visual Studio, and it has to match perfectly with Apache and PHP both. What do I mean by that? This open source code can be compiled to get you the binaries that will run the applications. Right now, you can see VC9, VC11, and so on. Now, VC11 stands for Visual Studio 2012. So whatever I choose for Apache, for PHP, I have to match the same thing. So I'm going to choose this, and I want the 64-bit version. So this is what I want. So as we saw in the previous page, 2.4.16 is the latest version. 64-bit is what I want, compiled by VC11 Visual Studio. So with all these parameters, this is the choice that I have to make. For the sake of brevity, in this video, I have already downloaded this file. This is the Apache download, and I'm going to install it now. Now, before we do that, there is a very nice write-up on how to do the installation, and I want you to refer to it while you are doing your own installation. And this is on this site. Unfortunately, there is no good documentation in other place on how to do this properly. You can see this address. It's superuser.com. Thanks to whoever created this. So I assume that when you are doing your own installation, you will properly read through all of this, but I'm going to do it very quickly and show you. This is a zip file. I'm just going to copy this. Okay, now I want Apache to be installed on the C colon, that's my main root drive. I will right click and just paste it. Right, so here we have it. Installation is actually as simple as that. There are a couple of things I have to do now to make it run on the system. I will need to run two commands from the command prompt. So I'm going to open the command prompt, and remember, you need to run it as an administrator. If you right click, run as an administrator, I want to traverse to my Apache installation. Change directory, Apache. The executables are in this folder, bin, which actually stands for binaries, cd bin. Okay, and now Apache executable is named HTTPD. Okay, you can see this HTTPD is the actual Apache server. In almost all cases, you will prefer to run Apache as a Windows service on your system. I'm going to show you how to run it as a service. But before that, let us see what all type of parameters you can run Apache with. I can do that like this with this command, httpd with a /?. This will give me all the parameters like so. Now you can see there are a bunch of different things you can do with this. First, what I want to do is do the install. This will install an Apache service, and it will be configured to run every time as a Windows service when you start the operating system. httpd -k install. You can see the Apache 2.4 service is successfully installed. Okay, so the service has been installed, but Apache web server is not yet started, so I cannot actually serve files currently. We can do that very quickly. The second command I want is -k start, and there are corresponding, you stop command also, which you can use at some point of time. httpd -k start. Perfect. So httpd -k start. Let me just quickly test this. I can test this by going to localhost on my browser in any. Superb. So you have a confirmation that it works. This is a default page being served by Apache server, which confirms that your server is working fine. Okay, as far as you are concerned, Apache has been successfully installed. It should not take more than 5 minutes. Now, see, this is the file that is actually being served. When you are building your own applications, web applications, htdocs is the folder where you will want to put up your web content. Now, I will move on to the next part of the video, which is to install PHP. I'm looking at that same write-up. Before we move on to PHP, there's one quick point that you may want to see. Sometimes, if we saw that Microsoft Visual Studio is used to compile Apache from open source, sometimes what may happen is on your operating system, one of the distributable files may be missing, in which case you will get an error when you're trying to install Apache. This can be easily solved by first installing redistributable for Visual Studio. You can either Google search it, or you can click on this link that I have mentioned earlier. Okay, once you install this, your subsequent Apache PHP installation should be perfect. Okay, now I'm coming to the PHP side of things. You should take the time to read the official PHP documentation. Well worth it. Now, again, we are going to download the latest PHP binaries. There is an official site for it, which is windows.php.net. windows.php.net/download. So this is the official distribution site. Now, if you remember, again, those parameters I have to consider. The first parameter that we spoke about was whether 32-bit or 64-bit, and I want 64-bit, right? And the second is which version of Visual Studio has been used to compile. That you can see here, VC11, right? For Apache, we used VC11. Now, I'm going to talk about the third parameter, which I had not mentioned earlier, that is threading consideration. Threading or multi-threaded nature or thread safe is basically a design feature of the application. Multi-threads can be used to make your application faster, more utilizing the capability of your processor. For my purposes, I want a thread safe. Now, unfortunately, when I tried running in my experiment, when I was doing a non-thread safe, I found a critical file missing. So I will not recommend you to use non-thread safe downloads at all. And PHP 5.6.11 is the latest version, but for my reasons, because this is much more stable, since it's there from a long time, I'm going to use PHP 5.5. 5.6, if you prefer, will function perfectly fine. I have some old versions of the code which has been perfectly tested on PHP 5.5, so this is what I'm going to go with. Now, the parameters that I have to see is whether it is VC11. Yes, this is VC11. I don't want the non-thread safe. This is thread safe, but it is x86 means 32-bit, so I don't want this. Again, this is VC11 x84 non-thread safe. I don't want this. This is the one that I want. I can click here and download it. But again, to speed things up, I have already downloaded it. And it is here. To install this, again, this is just a matter of extract files. I want to extract it to my C: root folder. I also recommend that you have this kind of a structure or a file folder name. Don't use anything with a blank space in it. Okay, so great. Now I have extracted PHP. Now to configure it to make it run, the very first thing that we have to do is create the php.ini file. Absolutely important to run PHP. Now you can see there are two files that has been kindly provided by PHP development team. Since this installation is a development environment for me, I'm going to choose php.ini for development. There are some differences between the two ini files. php.ini. This ini file, php.ini file, is a very important file for PHP to function properly. It is a set of configurations needed to run PHP. Now, I have to edit one or two things in this file. So you should open a simple ASCII editor to edit it. Do not use something like Microsoft Word or something which is a non-ASCII editor. Do not use it. So I am going to edit it with Notepad++. One small thing to note, anything that starts with a semicolon is a comment. It's basically an explanation, nice explanation of what configuration options you have. A bunch of things you may want to read this sometime. Okay, but for our installation, I'm quickly going to go back here. Again, in this writing, there are references to different versions. These are slightly different from the ones I have installed in this video, so don't worry about it. Use the same logic I have mentioned to choose for your own installation. You can very well take what he has mentioned also, but this is a little dated. The first chain that we want to do is, I'm going to search for this keyword, extension underscore dir. That is nothing but a particular directory name that is configurable. You can see there is an example given here very kindly by PHP. We're just going to use this. It has been commented out, so you can make changes. I'm just going to uncomment this. Basically what it means is, the directory, the name of the directory, which has all the loadable extensions for PHP. You can see in the installation folder here, PHP, there is actually a folder called ext, which has got all the DLLs that PHP needs. And we just have to configure it exactly the same. So I have uncommented this line and say I am basically saying extension directory for me is the folder called ext. It's perfectly fine. I just have to save it. That is the bare minimum that I need. Configuration change. There are many other things that you can fine tune, but I would not recommend you to do it until you are very comfortable doing it. Now, I have to do some configuration changes for Apache to recognize PHP files and execute it. What I have to do is I have to go to the Apache configuration location. Where can I find that? This is the Apache that I installed a few minutes back, Apache 2. Now, there is a folder called conf, which basically stands for configuration items. Now, this is the most important Apache configuration file. HTTPD, you saw HTTPD actually stands for Apache. .conf is the configuration file for that. Again, I want to open it with a plain ASCII editor. Notepad++ for me works. Now it has opened in this folder. Here, what I want to do is I want to tell Apache that any files on the server with an extension .php should be handled by PHP executable. The PHP code has to be executed, right? Or rather interpreted. The way I can do that is to load the PHP module correctly. How can I do that? Now let me quickly show you the PHP folder. If you look here, there is one file called php file apache 2_4. This is the critical file for Apache to load to be able to recognize PHP code. And Apache configuration should point to this file. How can I do that? With basically this command has to be given. Load module PHP file, and this has, I will just copy this. There are two very important points I want to point out for you. The first thing is, you saw in php.ini file, anything starting with the semicolon is ignored by the application. So this is just a comment for your purpose. Similarly, in Apache's configuration file, the hash symbol is a comment symbol. So anything that precedes with a hash is basically ignored. You have to make sure the command that you are giving, the configuration item that you are giving, hash does not have a hash symbol. Load module, php5 module. The next point that you have to notice is that while you are giving the Windows path inside Apache configuration, the symbol that is used is a / in Unix style. Actually, in Windows, you are more used to using the \, but do not do it. Use the / and Apache will read this properly, will understand this properly. So you remember to use the / in a path. This path incidentally matches exactly to where I have installed my PHP. You may have chosen to do different. For example, you may have given PHP 5.6 or something. Whatever you have chosen, make sure the path is perfect. This path exactly matches what I have chosen. And this is the same file name. Make sure this file exists in your PHP. So remember, do this correctly and it will load the module perfectly. There is one more item that I have to paste inside. Just copy this and right after this you can paste it. Let us quickly see what it has. So basically what it is saying is load module. If module loaded PHP 5 module, which is the same as this, if this has been successfully loaded, then the index files to see in this order, index.html, index.php. What this add handler does is very important for PHP functioning properly. Basically, it says anything with a .php file extension .php should be handled by PHP5 module. And there is one more configuration item here. Basically, it points to the PHP folder on our computer, PHP ini directory. Basically, what it says is the location where php.ini is located. Okay, that's it. I'm going to save this. Now, let us test if PHP is running properly. To do that, okay, that's it. And this should be sufficient for us to have installed. Now before we wind up, we have to test if PHP is being properly served. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a very simple PHP page and see that it is properly served by Apache. Let me go back to my editor. I'll just create a new file. I have a simple piece of code which is basically PHP info function is called. I want to save this. As I said, it should be in the htdocs folder. PHP. I am going to just give it a name, php info dot. Since this is a .php extension, it should be properly served by Apache. Before we do that, you may remember that we had installed the service and started Apache. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to stop PHP, uninstall the service, and then reload PHP in the same fashion again. I can do that by first stopping PHP. Okay, service has stopped. Now I want to uninstall. There is an uninstall command also. All I have to do is httpd -k uninstall. Almost all the commands have the same style of, right? So Apache 2.5 service has been removed successfully. Now I want to reload. I'm just going to install now. Apache 2.5 services successfully installed. I want to start it. Great. So it has now been started and Apache should now be able to handle the PHP file. Just to make it more fun, I'm going to open a new browser. This is actually Chrome now. Localhost. Great. So this basically means that Apache is working fine. Now I have to check for PHP. My file that I had given was php info.php, so I want to make sure this is running fine. Great. So this php info basically returns a lot of the configuration values for my PHP installation. So PHP is being handled perfectly. That's it. And you saw how easy it is to install Apache and PHP on Windows. The only thing you have to be very careful about are the three parameters which has to match exactly between the two. Two of those parameters have to match exactly. That is whether you are choosing 32-bit or 64-bit versions of the application. The second is which version of Visual Studio has been used to compile. As long as you keep these two parameters matching between Apache and PHP, it will work perfectly fine. The third parameter which you have to remember for PHP specifically is that you have to choose a thread safe version and don't pick the non-thread safe version, because in my trials I had a lot of issues making it run, and I saw there was one critical file missing also for whatever reason in the distribution. So that's it. Hi, in the lesson today, we are going to look at how to install MySQL on a Windows 8.1 platform. I have done a Google search, download MySQL for Windows, and dev.mysql.com/download/Windows. This is the official site. I have opened it in this window. I'm going to start with MySQL installer. This is a wizard-based installer that we will need. Okay, MySQL Server, this is the link that I want, and we should be looking at the Community Edition. MySQL Installer 5.6 for Windows. All MySQL products for all Windows platforms in one package. Perfect. And I want the 64-bit, so I clicked on the download. You can see there is a note, MySQL installer is 32-bit. Installer itself is 32-bit, but you can install the 64 binary which is included. This is what I want. There is a web installation and a non-web installation. I basically want the web. If you will not have an internet connection while you are downloading, you can always choose this. It will download the entire thing first, but I'm going to go for the web install. This screen will basically ask you to log in or to sign up. However, you can also say no thanks, just start my download. So this is the first installer file which I will save and start it up. This is the installation stub from MySQL. So what will happen is once you are running it, you can configure the things that you want and it will further download. I have in fact read through this. I accept the license terms. Choosing a setup type. So you are given multiple options on what you want to install. I am going to choose the default, developer default. Installs all products needed for MySQL development purpose. This is exactly what I want. You can separately choose server only, client only, but this is what I want. Next. I don't want either of these. MySQL for Excel and connect a Python. I don't want this right now. So when I say execute, these products are actually going to be downloaded and it's going to take a while to download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for now for a few minutes and revisit when all of these have been downloaded. After the download, automatically one by one the products will get installed and you have to wait through the complete installation. Great. So everything that all the products that I had chosen have been completely installed. So I have to now go to the configuration screen. Configuration type is a development machine. Perfect. I am going to stay with all of this default. I don't have anything to do advanced configuration right now. And MySQL root password. Since this is a development machine, I have given a simple password. Password strength is weak. I believe you have to give over 12 characters for it to be strong, which is fine. Configure MySQL Server as a Windows service. Definitely I want that turned on. This is the default service name. Start MySQL Server at system startup. Standard system account. Everything as is. Again next. Configuration for MySQL server has succeeded. Please click finish to continue. I'm going to check my user ID password. Connection successful. I come to the finish button now. The final step is start MySQL Workbench after setup. We will do that just to have a quick look. MySQL Workbench is an invaluable tool. It's which I can use to create new databases, run scripts, create scripts, all of that. Okay, so it appears to be running perfectly fine. Great. It has also created 3 sample databases. Okay, so great. We have successfully installed MySQL Server as a development environment configuration on my Windows 8.1 workstation. Thanks and bye. Hi. In today's lesson, we will look at installing Moodle, and the current latest release in the public domain is Moodle 2.9.1, but we are not going to look at that. This tutorial is to install Moodle 3.0, and there is a development release of Moodle 3.0. You can pick it up from download.moodle.org. This is where you need to click to open that. I have already opened that here, the development release. Okay, so Moodle can be downloaded in a couple of different ways for Windows. This is where you can get the zipped version, the Targa zip. I will be downloading this. However, there is a link here which is the Moodle installer package for Windows. This is a complete Windows installation package which includes Apache, MySQL, PHP, and Moodle in a single installable package with a wizard. I do not recommend that you use this package for a single reason, that is this is a XAMPP package. It's a pre-installed package. The advantage of using a XAMPP package is that it's a one-click and a very easy installation. However, the disadvantage is that XAMPP uses its own file structure, which may make it a little difficult for you to understand how the file structure is replicated in a real live Linux based production server. So we will not be doing that in this tutorial. We'll be doing a little hard way, but if you do this, you will be able to understand the file structure in a production environment much more easily. One. Second is the same Apache MySQL PHP installation what you have, you can use the same setup for installing multiple other open source projects. So we will be doing it the hard way, but it will give you a lot of other advantages. So this is what you have to download. Download the zip package with 46 MB. I have already downloaded this onto my hard disk here. You see this folder here that has to be copied. Once you copy, it should be placed into your Apache folder. Let me show you how that is done. So this is the Apache folder for me. This is in C:. Inside Apache, there is a folder called htdocs. This is your root folder for all the applications files that you intend to serve through Apache. I have already copied it here. This is just a simple copy and paste. So I have already copied it here. This is the structure you will be having. C: Apache 20. Of course, in your case, it may vary, but this is how. Inside htdocs is where you need to copy Moodle. Now, once I have copied, the next step for me is to create a empty database schema or a database. There are multiple ways in which you can create a database. There is a very nice, very famous open source project called PHP MyAdmin, through which you can administer your MySQL database. You can also use a tool called MySQL Workbench. This is MySQL Workbench. It's an open source project, again distributed through Oracle MySQL. So this icon here will help me do that. I click on it and I have to give a new name for my database. I am going to call it Moodle 3DB. Just remember, this has to be in small cases, one of the requirements with MySQL. And I apply. It is asking me to review the SQL script, create schema Moodle 3B is perfect, and I just say apply, finish. And we see that a new database has been created, Moodle 3DB. Now I can minimize this. Before we proceed, there are a few important changes I have to make to my php.ini file. The php.ini file will be in the php folder wherever you have installed it. In my case, under c:\php, I have the php.ini file. This is the file, and we have to make a few changes to it prior to installing Moodle. Now I have already opened this in a pure ASCII based text editor. The first change we have to make is I'm going to search for a parameter called extension dir. This is basically a configuration setting that you are making for PHP for the extension directory. You have to give the path where this is located. In my previous video, I had given this as just ext. Let me show you what I mean by this. See, basically what it says is under c:\php, I have a directory called ext extensions where I have all the libraries required by different modules of PHP. Now we have to tell PHP where this is located. And in the previous video, I had actually given it as ext, just this much. Here I am recommending that this entire thing, the complete path be given. And you can see this is a DOS or a Windows path, complete Windows path. This is required to make Moodle work properly going ahead. So please make, if you don't have the full path, make sure you have the complete path. Okay, so this is the first change. The second change is a few extensions have to be enabled. If you search for Windows extensions, you will see here there are a lot of extensions, and by default they have been commented out with a semicolon at the beginning. In short, what you have to do is you have to just remove the semicolons for the ones that I indicate. You will first start with php_curl curl. So I have removed it. Make sure in your installation you do the same for the php.ini file. What are we telling here? We are telling PHP to enable the extension denoted by this DLL file. Just now I indicated to PHP where my extension directory is, and this file will be located in that extension directory. Let me quickly show you. See, this is the same file, php_curl.dll. This is the file. Similarly, the next one you will want to do is php_gd2 or whatever number you have. It will be php_gd followed by some number which will indicate the version number. Again, remove the semicolon that will be at the beginning. Similarly for php_international.dll. MB string. This one is very important. Extension equal to php_mysqli.dll. This is what enables PHP to communicate with your MySQL. Similarly, OpenSSL. If these extensions are not enabled by removing the semicolon, while you are installing Moodle, you will get errors. Okay, so make sure these are enabled. Similarly, there is one more. This is for the SOAP extension, and finally the XML RPC. These are the ones that are absolutely required for Moodle to work properly. I have already done this and saved it. In your case, you may want to remove the semicolons and save it. So once after you have saved, there is one more very important thing that we have to do. I will now go to the control panel to make sure c:/php is available in the computer's path environment. How do I do that? First, I want to open the control panel. In the control panel, go to System, Advanced System Settings. Here, you want to look at the environment variables. There is a variable called as path. I will review this and make changes. You can click on Edit. You will get the variable value, that is the path variable value. What this means, I will explain in a moment. First, I copied this. Then again, I will open my editor, open a new window and paste the path that I had copied. Now, what actually this means is, by default, Windows will remember these paths. You will not have to explicitly give this path while running commands. That's what, in short, the path variable does. When you copy and take this to the file, you can see a lot of these are here. In your case, in all probability, you will not find the PHP path in your path variable. So this has to be included. This path has to be included and a semicolon written at the end. Again, this is absolutely necessary to make PHP extensions and PHP function properly with your Moodle. You have to make sure this is properly in your path variable. How do I find where this is? Again, you can just go in your File Explorer to wherever you have installed PHP. Click on the root folder name, and when you click on the address bar, you will get the path. You can just copy and add it. You can add it anywhere in the path. You can even add it at the end. In my case, it is here. After you copy the path, absolutely make sure to separate it from other variables with a semicolon, like this. So preceding and end both should be semicolons if it is not in the first place. Okay. Now, once you have added to the path variable, you can select the whole thing, copy, select the path variable, edit, and you can paste it here. Before you do any of this, I highly recommend that you copy and save the existing path carefully in some location, in some file. In case you make mistakes, you should be able to revert. If you do not do this correctly, it is guaranteed that one or more applications that you have installed on your computer may not work properly. So take great care while doing any of this. Okay, in my case, it's already there, so I'm going to cancel. In your case, you will have, if you have edited, you have to click on OK. Okay, so we have made three things in the PHP INI. We have mainly added the extension directory path. Second thing is we have enabled a few DLLs. I have shown you which one they are. The third thing we have done is we have included c:/php or the PHP path in the path variable of the operating system. Okay. Now once all of these have been done successfully and the file has been saved, now I want to restart my PHP. Sorry, I want to restart my Apache. How do I do that? I have to run the command prompt as an administrator. I am going to traverse to my Apache folder /bin folder. httpd is my Apache executable. If I give a /? it will show me all the options I have. So in this case, what I will need is the first one, -k. I'm going to stop Apache first and then start it back again. The reason I have to do this is the changes that I have made in my php.ini will now start reflecting along with Apache. Great. Now I am now ready to start installing Moodle. I open an empty browser window. If you enter localhost/Moodle, automatically the installation wizard kickstarts. Localhost basically denotes your local computer. So this is the first screen of Moodle installation. It is asking me to choose a language. The default selection English is fine with me. So then I can say next. I recommend that you read through this page and understand what it means. The web address, it has pre-populated, which is fine with me. Localhost/Moodle is what I will be needing. This is the Moodle directory. The full path is perfect, it's correct again. The data directory. What does this mean? What this means is that Moodle, during its operation or the functioning of Moodle, will use a temporary directory as a scratch directory or a buffer space where it may store a lot of data required to function correctly. So it may be some course data, installation data, a lot of other things. So this is something you can of course configure. If this path is not there, it will create it also. So this is actually fine with me. In your production server also, it will create something like this. So you need, this is required for a few debug things. So just remember, I'm going to say next. Then I have to choose a database driver. In my case, I have used MySQL database. In your case, I think you'll be using MySQL or some other database server, which is fine. And I'm going to go with the default MySQL. Now, if you remember in the php.ini, we had enabled a DLL which pertained to MySQL. That is where this is relevant. If you had not turned on the extension properly and restarted Apache, in the next step you would find a problem, but it should function properly for us. Great. Now we have to configure, we have to tell Moodle where our database scheme resides. So the database host for me is localhost. This is correct. This is where my database is running. This is correct. And the database name I have already created. If you see here, the name we gave was Moodle 3DB. I have to give that same name now. Moodle 3DB. The database user and password is next. I am using the root. This is not very secure, but it's perfectly okay for a local host. This is the password. There is a tables prefix. Basically, for every table that it creates, it's going to prepend these letters. Basically stands for Moodle. I'm not going to mess with either of these two. I'm going to say next. If you come to the screen properly, it means there have been no errors so far. Moodle has found all the extensions, everything that it needs to proceed. One. Second is it has been able to communicate with the database server and it has found your empty database correctly. If any of this could not be done, you will find a error in the previous screens. Now, you have to confirm that you have read the license agreement, the conditions and understood them, and you're saying continue. If anything was not found to Moodle's liking, for example, if PHP was not functioning properly or database not found or any other problem, you will have errors showing on the screen. I have a warning here. I have a warning in the screen. It says that the PHP setting should be changed. But however, this is not a showstopper and I can change it later on. So I am going to ignore it for now and I'm going to, I have a confirmation that your server environment meets all minimum requirements. I'm going to continue. So in this screen, what is happening is that Moodle has kickstarted its installation program and it is doing a lot of background work, creating the files, creating database tables, running a lot of scripts. So it's doing all of that in the background. For the next few minutes, probably, what we will have to do is just wait for the installation program to finish. Okay, great. So the installation wizard has completed and it took a good few 5 minutes or so in my case. So I click on continue. At this stage, installation has primarily finished and the next 2 or 3 screens will be about configuring Moodle. The first thing we have to do is create an admin user for Moodle. I'm going to give my admin name. One more point to note is Moodle requires that your usernames, which is different from the email address, the username should be all small letters. And a password. The first name, surname, of course, you can use capitals in that. In this example, in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is only the required ones I'm going to fill, more or less. Other things can be configured at a later time. So I have created the first user, which is also the admin super user. for Moodle in this screen. The screen turned blank, or it stopped functioning for a moment. I just refresh the page and I come to the next page. Here Moodle gives me a chance to edit my profile. I can set a few additional things. No changes that I want to do at this point of time. So I'm just going to update profile. Okay. This is a problem that I have solved earlier. After editing my profile, in the next page, I have an error. The page isn't redirecting properly. You may get the same error or similar errors. Basically, at this stage, what I have to do is I have to clear my cache. But rather, I have to go to that Moodle data directory that we had configured earlier. This will not be inside your htdocs. This Moodle data directory, and I am going to empty this directory. So great. So now I have come to the home screen of my Moodle installation. For the very first time that I log in as an admin, Moodle is now asking me to configure very few basic things for my Moodle installation. The full site name I'm going to give us Learn Good Online Learning Platform, short name. There are a lot of other things that you can configure. What will the front page contain? A list of courses and up till 5 other choices you have by default, which if you want you can give. List of courses, list of categories, news items. This point of time I don't want to configure any of this. I'm going to leave it all to the default. All of this can be configured later. So I'm just going to leave most of it as is. However, the location setting I do want to change. There are a lot of other settings. For example, self-registration can be turned on, which will allow any new users to register by themselves. You may want to do this at a later stage after understanding the pros and cons very well. So I'm going to save changes for now. Fantastic. So after that script in the previous page completed, I have a functional Moodle 3.0 installed, and this is actually the home page for my installation. You can see I'm logged in now. Nothing else is configured at this moment. For example, I do not have any courses created, and all of that we will see further on in this tutorial. A quick note. There are two things that may help you if you face problems during the installation. The first thing is, please follow all the instructions that I have given in this tutorial, especially the php.ini settings, the path variable change. I have debugged all of this and put it concisely so that you should not face any errors. After doing all of this properly, you may still find problems on your installation because open source programs are more or less like this. The best way to resolve an error that you find is to copy the complete and exact error string and Google for it. Almost always you will find that lots of other people would have faced the same problem and a solution will be posted somewhere. One more very simple thing is, sometimes installation scripts do not complete and you may get a blank page. or you may not see activity after 5-6 minutes of running, in which case just refresh the page. And the installation is designed to pick up from where it last stopped. So many cases this also works out. Okay, best of luck installing Moodle 3.0, and if you find errors, please give it a shot in resolving. Good luck.